All right, for this week's Reddit reply, we're going to talk about why Star-Lord is great, or at least good. Same with Scarlet Witch, but obviously she's much better. We're going to do some rule stuff, all those fun things. So let's dive right into Reddit. All right, the first one is, why is Star-Lord so beloved? I play several games with Star-Lord, and each time I'm not left with a particular good feeling. I can pick up almost any hero and have a really good time. I even have fun with Hulk and Val. What's that supposed to mean? Of course you had fun with Valk. She's the GOAT. So when I see so much talk about how Star-Lord is among so many people's favorites, I have to wonder if I'm missing something. When I play a hero, I tend to lead into their gimmick. After all, if I plan not to, why wouldn't I just play another hero? I also find it thematic, so on and so forth. They talk about Nelson's and Villain Theory's Shadow of the Cast, which if you ever listened to, you definitely should. And he talked about how he kind of did things a bit differently with Star-Lord. That he wouldn't use his gimmick all the time. So it's an interesting take, but since they're being so selective, I found that his hero cards are basically useless. 3 cost for 5 damage, 2 cost for 2 thwart, and that is true, right? So if you do gutsy move, it's remove 2 threat from a scheme, remove 2 additional threat from a scheme for each face down encounter card. Same with sliding shot; it's a 2 for 5 damage as long as you have the gun, and deal 2 damage for each encounter card. I didn't listen to this episode of Shadow of the Cast, so I'm not exactly sure on the wording. But for me, I agree with Nelson. You need to be very selective in how you use Star-Lord's ability. If you use it every single time, you're playing Heroic 1, and the game gets pretty rough then. I think for most people, when they play Star-Lord, you have to be selective in when to use it, in the sense of, okay, do I want to run his big attack card now? Do I want to run a big thwart card now, or not? Right? That's really what it kind of comes down to, in my opinion. Am I going to be able to stack it really hard with Daring Escape, right? Deal yourself 1 face down encounter card to ready your hero and draw a card. Now, Star-Lord is a 2 thwart hero, so you could do 2 and then 2, and then you don't have to worry about thwarting with the ready up, right? Exhaust for 2, exhaust for 2 more. So it's are getting those face down cards going to be really beneficial to me. A lot of people, I think, lean into, and then if you get Leader of the Guardians, you're +1, which is crazy. Anyway, so I think a lot of people lean into, where is it? His gun, right? Elemental gun, because you get this during setup, and they go, oh, it's 3 costs. I can get a face down encounter card, play it for free. And you can do that if it makes sense. And I think this is the big thing, is that your play in the beginning doesn't always have to be automatically something costs a lot, I use this card. Maybe it is more beneficial to pay for your cards to run a Nick Fury and draw 3 cards and then play this card, right? Maybe that is the beneficial play to do. And to me, that's a part of the fun and the balance with him. I don't run his gimmick every single turn of what could go wrong. Right, there is a lot that can go wrong, it turns out. So I think it has to be selective in that sense, right? You're not just getting a face down card every single round because you want to use the ability. It doesn't now make sense with gutsy move, right? And essentially, if there's only 2 threat in the main scheme, there's no sense in really using gutsy move. It's kind of a weird card. Sliding shot, I really save for the big attacks, and that's it. Because for his general attacks, I'm not even using sliding shot unless I need, like I said, that big hit. I'm using elemental gun, especially 2 of them. It's basically 2 for 6 damage in that sense, right? After you played the card, because you're using 1 resource, deal 3 damage, and using that resource to do 3. That's a decent trade-off, right? 2 for 6 is a decent trade-off. So that's kind of how I look at it, is that Star-Lord's really there to kind of like thwart and kind of hang out and whatever. And yes, he lines up those big attacks and those big thwarts when you need them, but it shouldn't be something you're doing every single turn. So I'm going to assume that's what Nelson meant, but I don't really know. But yeah, it is one of those things, in my opinion, one of those things you have to be kind of careful with, right? You have to be kind of careful where, okay, how much do I really want to take face down cards? How much I want to, like, you just have to be careful with it, line up everything. And to me, a lot of people see Star-Lord as like this risk taker, and he is to a point, but I also think he's one of those people that you have to line up everything really in the right order and make sure everything is going to work well. And to me, that's like more of the challenge with him, is getting all your ducks in a row. Question about webbed up and followed. Can cards like webbed up and followed sit in your play area to attach later? No, it can't. So webbed up basically says hero form only, attached to an enemy, max 1 per enemy. And followed says attached to a side scheme, max 1 per side scheme. When it's a sentence by itself like this, it's always checking that thing. So attached to a side scheme, it must be attached to a side scheme at all times. If for some reason it wasn't attached to a side scheme, then it just goes away, right? It wouldn't exist. Same with this. If you weren't attached to an enemy, it would also go away. Hero form only is kind of a weird sentence here because that makes it sound weirder than it is, but basically you can only play it when you're in hero form. But that's just what that's saying. So anyway, no, there has to be something that's attached to. You can't just play it. They were wondering because they saw a comment about something else, so that's why they said that. Scarlet Witch Hex Bolt question help. Hey everyone, I have a quick question. I'm trying to understand Hex Bolt. When I draw 3 cards, also you're discarding, just FYI. Should I go through each card individually? For instance, on the first card, do I count the boost icons resolve the effect like dealing damage, then move on to the next one? Then no. Or count it together as one boost, potentially making the card not very effective. No. So what you do for Hex Bolt, which Hex Bolt is one of the most broken cards in the game, just FYI. So with Hex Bolt, you discard the top 3 cards of the encounter deck, right? Do that thing first. So you discard all 3, and you have them sitting there on the table. For each of the ones discarded this way, then you count the boost icons on each one. So let's just say for hypothetical sense, you have a 0, a 1, and a 2, right? You can do that in any order you want. So you can draw a card first to kind of see what you got going on, right? So you can draw a card, then do the damage, and then remove the threat, right? It doesn't have to be damage, threat, draw 1 card, and it's not added all up. The reason that this is all important is because you could remove threat and use Scarlet Witch's ability, let's say, to when the boost icons and counter card would be counted, you can discard the top card of the encounter deck and count that number instead. So if you drew your 3 and you really didn't want, let me back this up a little bit, and you really did not want, let's say, deal 2 damage, right? You just didn't want to deal damage yet. You could discard that card and keep the 1 and the 2 and then draw a new one, see what happens. And then you could play something like Witch's Crest, where is it? Where you now can change the amount of things that you count. So let's say you really don't need to draw a card. Well, I can now add it to up to 3, right? Take the 2 to a 3, and I can place the status effect. So again, you're manipulating this. This is what, to me, what makes Scarlet Witch so much fun, is that it's constant manipulation, but you don't count them all together, and you don't have to count in the order. You discard all 3, look at them, decide which the order you want is, which can be really important for like guard and patrol and things like that. What I will say also too really quickly, because a lot of people don't pay attention to this, and this is why this card is so bonkers, is a 2-cost Hex Bolt, right? It is not an attack for dealing 2 damage to enemy, and it's not a thwart. So if you are stunned and confused, or stunned and or confused, this card still works, right? A lot of people don't get that the first time around, that if I am stunned and confused and I draw a 0, a 0, and a 1, I can still do 2 damage, and remove 2 threat. I can absolutely still do that because confusion just stops thwarting, and I'm not thwarting, I'm removing threat from a scheme. There are different things. And stunning stops you from attacking. I'm not attacking, I'm dealing damage. Just an important note to note with her. This leads us right into why people like Scarlet Witch. Why do people like her so much? Her hero kit seems pretty, her hero ability seems pretty mid. We play her pre-con, and I'm pretty sure that's the reason we think she's meh. Because someone tell me what I'm missing. So we've kind of led into this. I will say that oops, that's not the right one I want. If you are just looking at Scarlet Witch's ability as like, like as a boost activation and that's it, or like when the villain is flipping over like a boost card, like I get why you would say that. Now this can also be huge for things like Goblin Glider, right? That comes in as a boost, and I think you reveal it when it comes in. Well, instead you can just discard that card, right? Like being able to discard some cards that just get revealed off the boost icon or the star symbol is kind of huge, but it really is used, essentially her thing, for when she is counting the amount of boost icons. And again, when you have cards like Molecular Decay, where 3 for 5 damage is awful, but discarding the next 2 cards and you get a 3 boost icon card, but the next one's 0. Well, you might as well redo the 0, because the worst it will be is another 0, but maybe it's a 1, maybe it's a 2, maybe it's a 3, right? You can get so much more damage. So that's how you should really be using it. To me, that's what makes it so fun and so cool with her, that she can kind of mess around with the board state like this. And I think, I mean, Chaos Magic is obviously like a crazy card too, but just all of it is just, in my opinion, just so much fun. And I want to say that a lot of people run her in, she came in Justice, right? Yeah, so a lot of people run her in Justice. I heard Justice cards are fine. Multitasking is a good card. But the rest are fine. Turn the Tide is one of those secret cards I feel like people don't realize how bonkers good it is. But she has really good cards in here. I don't really remember her playing her pre-con that much. I don't remember if it's good or not. I'm going to guess no. But I feel like it takes a lot of people a bit to recognize how good she really can be, with spiritual meditation and not Dev Focus, but the other one that increases your hand size. Can't remember what it's called, but whatever. All those cards, any Mystic card basically helps out a lot. So she can be really strong, mainly because she's a Mystic. But to me, that's a part of the fun, is just manipulating the decks a lot. And like, you know, it's like what we just talked about with Star-Lord. Like Star-Lord is like high risk, high reward. She feels like low risk, high reward, right? Assuming you time everything right. Like, yes, you go through the encounter deck slightly faster, but generally speaking, if you have a decent Scarlet Witch deck, like, threat is not that big of an issue. So it just feels like, and like with Hexbolt, again, if she's confused, I'm just going to Hexbolt all day. And with the crown being able to manipulate, because it is most cards average around 2, like high 1s, low 2s. So I should be able to get the remove 2 threat pretty easily. And again, if I'm confused, it's not that big of an issue. So anyway, to me, she can control the board state better than so many heroes, and I like the card manipulation. And I would say that's probably why I like her so much. All right, hero action attack. Looking at Iron Man's cards, if I play the event Repulsor Blast, I do not exhaust Iron Man for that hero action. Correct? Correct. That card doesn't say to do so, but I would exhaust Iron Man if I do a basic attack or thwart afterwards. Correct. So I could attack using an event card and still thwart or attack. And yep, you can. There's oh gosh, I'm gonna mess up the terminology. I think there's actions and basic actions. That might be wrong. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what it's called. Exhausting your card is a basic action. Playing a card is an action. They are different. It's weird to understand, but like a lot of people will just say, like, obviously do what the card says, not what the card doesn't say. Am I saying that right? I think that's what it is. But it is really key, right? Generally speaking, for most of the cards that are out there, you do not have to exhaust your hero to play that card, right? So anyway, they are correct. You are correct. Good job. And I know this is a very common question. I know people see this question a lot. And I don't know if they get frustrated by it or whatever, and they shouldn't. It's a very common question. I get that people are making a mistake early on, and we will keep hammering it home on these videos until the mistake is never made again. All right, best aspect for a hero. If you had to pick a hero that is clearly more powerful in one aspect than others, which one would it be? For me, it's Protection Drax, which I hard agree with. I hard agree with this. I've tried Drax in other aspects, and it works, right? You can obviously get it to work, but yeah. He never wants to flip to alter ego. Then we have leadership X23. X23 works in every aspect. I disagree with that. Obviously, you can do Honey Badger OP, sure, but she works really well in aggression. She works really well in justice. She works really well in aggression. Protection I haven't really tried that much with, but the ready upness makes her really good. So no, I've tried it. I've just done nothing else but ready up protection that I think about it. So she works in protection too. Justice Black Widow. There is a lot of people who have done protection Black Widow to great effect. I've done it, but not to great effect, but it can be done. But I do agree that she makes the most sense in Justice. Prep cards are great for her Aggression Hulk Smash Bolt. No, okay. So as far as what makes the most sense, there are very few heroes I feel like that can only be played in one aspect, and that's kind of cool. Like if I'm playing solo, Spider-Man, generally speaking, I want to play Injustice, right? Excuse me, because his thwarting is just so lacking that it kind of feels like you have to. With everyone else, I feel like they can play almost any aspect, at least two aspects, right? So like you think of like Shadowcat. Most people play Shadowcat just in protection. She actually works really well in aggression as well. The same can be said for Ghost Spider. Ghost Spider makes a lot of sense in protection, but she can be playing the aggression, and it works actually pretty well. Star-Lord works really well in leadership, but if you're doing a rush strategy, aggression makes a lot of sense. So it's one of those weird things where, you know, a lot of people might say Wolverine aggression. I think Wolverine protection is the best Wolverine. There are actually I thought one with Groot and Justice. I don't want to play Groot in any other aspect than Justice. You can, I'm sure it will work, but I don't want it to. Well, not that I don't want it to. I just don't want to. I want to play him in Justice every single time. For me, that's the thing that makes the most sense. Not Gamora. Nebula in Justice makes the most sense because you have to flip down so much. I'm gonna have to be in Justice to like deal with it. And again, this is kind of like from a solo perspective. So those are the standout ones. And I feel like there aren't. I'm trying to think in the X-Men if there's any real X-Men that I'm like, oh, it has to be in a certain aspect. I don't really think so, which is kind of cool. I mean, Cyclops makes the most sense in leadership, but aggression Cyclops works pretty well too. Rogue does her thing, it's good. Yeah, I feel like they've done a pretty good job. Now, obviously, there's like aspects that are better, right, than others. But I'm just trying to think of like ones that would be like solely make sense in this aspect. Like I think Protection Drax is a really good example. Like you can get it to work in other aspects, but like does it? Like really does it? Like Protection just makes the most sense. This is also why I think he has the best precon in the game. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. I think this is an interesting topic in general. Obviously, each hero has a stronger one, but I think there's very few where like you want to be 100% this one way and that's it. You know what I mean? Ultron question. Hey, quick question about Ultron. If I have a tough card and Ultron attacks me, do I get a drone? You absolutely do, because we should probably look up Ultron. Ultron just states that after Ultron attacks you, choose to either place one threat in the main scheme and put a top card face down as a drone. He still attacked you, right? You just didn't take damage. So that's kind of the difference there. Now, if he stunned Ultron, or if this person, I should say, if they stunned Ultron, then you would not get a drone because the stun replaces the attack activation, right? So again, if you have a tough card and Ultron attacks me, do I get a drone? Yes. Or since we don't get any boost cards and he's being blocked from attacking, he's not being blocked from attacking. That's a key thing to note. He is still attacking. Okay. It's also weird that they would say that they don't open any boost card. Like you should still go through that with tough. Now that I'm rereading, I only read the first sentence. You know me, I don't read things all the way. If you have a tough status, you still have to go through the whole enemy activation. Make sure you do that. You just take no damage. Restriction questions. Hey, I'm a new player who just picked up the Deadpool character deck, and I just wanted to know all the rules around restricted cards, especially when it comes to using them outside the deck with... okay, so Arm to the Teeth is like a little bit weird of a card. Restricted generally means you have two hands, you can hold two things. That's restricted, right? You can hold two. You have two hands. That's what it means. Arm to the Teeth was a little bit weird. Arm to the Teeth. Can I spell today? I can. Let's go. So Arm to the Teeth is basically hold on, after you play Arm to the Teeth, search your collection for... Okay. So if you had two restricted weapons and you were somehow putting a third one in, you wouldn't be able to do that, right? Like if you had two restricted somehow, or two restricted and then a non-restricted, you want to put in like a third restricted, excuse me, you wouldn't be able to do that, right? You can't have three restricted cards is basically how that would work out. How similar are Marvel Champions, Lord of the Rings, and Arkham Horror? For those who have played Marvel Champions and Lord of the Rings or Arkham Horror, is there much difference between the games beyond the trappings? Yeah, they're entirely different games. I did a video on this way back when, and I should update sometime because it's got a lot of views and it's good to recycle your content. But yeah, they're entirely different. The really short synopsis, obviously past like the IPs, depending on what IP you like, move on. It decides which one you pick. Marvel Champions to me is a very quick and snappy game, right? It's easier deck building, and there's no story. There's very little story. Lord of the Rings has a bit more story. It's very heavy into deck building, and it's a much longer game. Arkham Horror is very great at story. It's a little more random in my opinion with the Chaos Bag and whatever. And like the deck building is, I think, harder than Marvel Champions, easier than Lord of the Rings. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. Arkham Horror has a whole campaign system where you fail forward. Marvel Champions campaign system is... Lord of the Rings has campaigns technically, but like, I don't think you really ever get anything for like succeeding. You just kind of play through the game. So Lord of the Rings is also very basic feeling. I don't mean this in a negative way, but like outside of like the actual gameplay, it's very basic feeling of like there's not rewards for campaigns, there's no extra stuff, there's not like I don't know. Like when you play Arkham Horror campaign, you play a Marvel Champions campaign, like they feel very unique and whatnot. That's not the case with Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings will also teach you about action windows and very quickly, because that game is a bunch of action windows, which is good, not complaining. I love Lord of the Rings, but they are three very different games. And I do think it's worth picking up all three if you're really into LCGs. Best way to purchase upcoming content. Apologies, it's been asked before, but I couldn't find anything. I'm finally to the point where I'm buying the next wave on release date. Let's go. What's the best way to purchase things? If I order through Fantasy Flight's website, am I going to pay shipping for each individual hero pack since they are staggered releases? You sure will. Back in my day, there Fantasy Flight games used to have free shipping on pre-ordered items. It was fantastic. Sometimes I got it before the street date. Sometimes I got it like a week after. It was hit and miss, but whatever. So anyway, our local game shop's getting them on day one. Just curious what my options are. I don't have a local game shop, but from my understanding, they do. I have ordered from Boardlandia and gotten it pretty close to release day. That's been my best success. Game Nerds has been hit and miss for me, and Miniature Market has been a lot of misses for me. I used to like Miniature Market a lot. I think they've gone downhill somewhat recently with pre-order stuff. With normal ordering, they're fine. With pre-order stuff, I never get things like what I'm supposed to. Game Nerds, I used to get it on the release day. Then like the last time or two I used it, it was like really late. Like it was really late. So it was weird. Boardlandia, I've done pretty well with. I've been pretty happy with. Hero Help. So I play Marvel Champions with my girlfriend. I'm a big fan of every hero and what they are best at. And you really enjoy every hero I touch because in two-handed, every hero can be built around their strengths. On the other hand, my girlfriend, who has a very small pool of heroes she enjoys. She hates heroes that play risky like Star-Lord and Deadpool. She does not like heroes like X-23, sad, or Wolverine, sad, who use their life as a resource, but understandable. Four-hand size heroes are a no-go for her, and cards that cost 4 are not worth to play in her opinion. I get the argument. She wants to build up, but she doesn't like cards like Avengers Mansion because they are expensive and are not fun to her. She struggles to see their use. For example, Nick Fury is a bad card in her eyes. Okay. So she likes leadership because it could do everything, which is fair. She likes justice, but she doesn't see the worth in cards like one way or the other. Okay. She wants to defend every turn because health is her number one priority, but doesn't enjoy protection. Getting kind of tricky now. Aggro is too event-based for her opinion, so it's quite hard to deck build for her. Of the heroes she plays, she really loves Domino, which is sweet, and Spectrum. She enjoyed Spider-Woman and loves that Strange is so extremely good. It's nice to see that their copy of Strange isn't in the trash like mine. Mine just like jumps right into the trash. It's crazy. Anyway, so those are her top 4 heroes together with her 2 captains. I guess Captain America, Captain Marvel. So my question is, which heroes could fit her playstyle while not being used in leadership? I want to try to make her love other aspects and still keep it easy and fitting to her play style. So the first thing I will say, okay, let's first answer the question he's posing, which is I would say Groot, right? Groot with the counters like makes it easier and you can still play him in Justice and whatnot. That's what I would say. Past that, I would say, unless she really wants to switch to other heroes, like I would just let her do her thing. I mean, honestly, I look at it this way: if my wife played the game, and I finally got her into the game, which you all know, Novels has no interest in playing this game. She'll play other games on stream, but not that, which is totally cool. But if she finally showed interest and was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be on Team Valk all day, every day," and I'd be like, Novels, that's a brilliant choice. You should absolutely do that. But she only likes to play, Valkyrie and Protection, whatever it may be. Okay. Like I'm going to let her do her thing. And I'm going to say like, hey, if you really want to, we can try other things. And maybe I don't want to jump on this guy too much. Maybe his girlfriend or her girlfriend, I don't know who it is, their girlfriend, maybe they said like, hey, build me another deck. Let me try other things. And they just go, nah, it's not for me. But if your significant other is like, hey, like, I'm happy with these like 4 heroes, and you're like, no, you should really try the others. Like, I wouldn't force that on them, right? Like, just personally. Like, I'm not saying that's what this person is doing. Like, I'm not saying this person is doing. But I'm sure there's people out there like this because that's kind of how I get. I'm like, oh my gosh, you really like this one hero. Wait till I introduce you to the next 40 others. And the thing is, like, a lot of people aren't like us, right? We're kind of crazy with this stuff, and we love this stuff, and we think about it and play it all the time. Other people might not be like that. So unless your significant other really wants to like try different things, I mean, for this, I would suggest Groot, but this is a really hard needle to thread. So maybe they're just happy playing with what they have, and they like their like little set, and they can like master that set and whatnot. So, yeah, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one because in my head, there's very few heroes that kind of fit the build there. I'd have to really think about that, but Groot is the one that comes off the top of my head. All right, status cards. What happens when I have a stun status card and 0 attack? Does the basic attack still eliminate the status? Same goes with confusion. If I have a tough and will be attacked with 0, does it go away? Okay, so if you're stunned, right? If you're stunned and you swing for 0, right? Hypothetically, you still clear out the stun because the stun replaces the attack. So it doesn't matter what the attack is. right? Again, it could be for 0. It's still an attack. That's the important part. It clears out the attack. Same with confusion, right? If you're thwarting for 0, doesn't matter. You could still clear out the stun, or the confuse, because you're thwarting. That's all the game cares about. As far as tough goes, tough will absorb all the damage, not that an attack took place, all right? So if the villain hits you for 0 damage, right, you don't lose your tough all of a sudden, because the tough never absorbed any damage, if that makes sense. Hopefully that helps. All right, hopefully you enjoyed this week's Reddit reply. If you haven't yet, make sure you go over to twitch.tv/G20 Woodwork and hit the follow button. You can hang out with us live, and if you have rules questions, feel free to ask, or when I go live here on YouTube. Either way, no problem. Always feel free to ask questions. That's what I'm here for. But hopefully you enjoyed these videos. I didn't do Reddit reply last week because I was out of town. So future Jason is going to put a random video right here, and hopefully you enjoy it. And if you did not hit the subscribe button, make sure to do that. Hit like, all that fun stuff. And I'll see you all next time.